good morning, good afternoon, good middle of the night. This is Michelle Williams, your Survey123 Jedi. And today I want to introduce you to Bad Elf's secret weapon. You're going to get to meet Nick, and he's amazing. He loves all things geospatial. What we're going to do is we're going to get to know him just a little bit in the beginning, and then he's going to dive into connecting Survey123 to your Bad Elf device. And then he's going to talk us through, there's a few different versions. So he's going to share with us a little bit about RTK and accuracy. And we're going to talk about ellipsoids and all kinds of wonderful things. I hope you enjoy this as much as I do.
So I just saw on LinkedIn that you had a picture of you and your wife. And I just wanted to know, how did you meet? Just a quick who you are, how you met, and I noticed you both have PhDs. So was that part of your journey?
Yeah. So my wife and I met in graduate school, and so we both participated in the MAS GIS, so graduate program in GIS at Arizona State University. And so we met because of GIS, and actually some of our first opportunities in the greater Phoenix area were people that we mutually knew. And then fun fact, about 11 years ago, I proposed to Danielle at an Esri users conference. And so actually the Sunday before we went down to Coronado Island, I proposed. Thank God she said yes. And that Monday, we actually gave a presentation about GIS and LiDAR in front of about, 1,000, 1,500 people, which would have been awful if she would have said no. So GIS has been a part of it ever since. We both had aspirations when we had met to do a PhD. She helped me through mine first, took about 5 years, and then she just got through hers, took about 5 years. And we've basically been together for an entire PhD lifespan of our 2 lifespans. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. Well, congratulations. You look so happy here on this photo on LinkedIn. So I just thought I'd ask because people may or may not ask you that on different podcasts. So my next one is...
I was just gonna say, I definitely feel blessed. It's awesome to, be with somebody and have your best friend do what you do. And so not exactly right. She's actually does much cooler stuff than me, but we can talk on the same level at least. So yeah. All right. Yeah. What else you got?
I agree. My husband and I, we say we meet at one software, and that's our GIS Pro. So
I love it.
He likes drones. I like Survey123, and we meet in the middle. My next question is, what excites Bad Elf for the future?
What excites Bad Elf for the future? Well, we are in what's something I've been calling for the last couple of years, the geospatial moment. We've in the United States and around the globe, we've never had so many opportunities with location-based devices. This would encompass things like Survey123 or a field map, GPS that Bad Elf creates, but so much more than that, right? Like there's all this Earth observations and satellite data and drone data and LiDAR data and ground penetrating radar data and synthetic aperture radar data and bathymetric stuff. And so there's just all these data that are coming in. And at Bad Elf, we're sort of, to be kind of punny and using survey terms, like we're the point of beginning, right? So at Bad Elf, we help create the data that everything are built upon, right? And so like we are that point of beginning. We're the cornerstone of the data set that inevitably all these things feed into and out of. And so just really excited because we're seeing these types of technologies just blowing up all across the world, smartphone revolution, obviously, and it's being disseminated to the masses. And so that would be the other thing. The cost of these devices have come down considerably, and so we get to deal with and work with like really neat partners all over the world, doing some pretty incredible mapping. So I'd say that's probably the most exciting stuff in the near future, just the total adoption of these new technologies.
That's wonderful. And then my next one is a conference question.
Okay.
What is the most memorable comment that somebody's made either about Bad Elf or about a conference that you just thought was very interesting and memorable?
Okay, so do you want like the industry, like this is what you would tell your teacher or your mom, or do you want my guttural instinct, like like what I would tell my friends?
Let's go with the tell your friends. That would be fun.
Awesome. Yeah. So I was at a conference. It was in Kentucky in Lexington, and it was their state's GIS conference. I think they called it the Kentucky Area Mapping Conference, something like that. And great people, great conference. And there was a keynote speaker, and the keynote speaker there was a third generation African American distiller who worked for the company Buffalo Trace. So if you drink any type of high end bourbons, or you've ever sat with somebody that has, it's a pretty nice type of whiskey. And so this gentleman, I mean, 3 generations in, his great grandfather, was a distiller in slavery. And so he was very kind of impactful when he was speaking, but he said, two kind of really profound things that it just struck me. Like, again, you're like, what does whiskey have to do with GIS? Everything. I'm just kidding. But he mentioned that in his dad's old age that his father could no longer drink this bourbon neat, right? So on its own. So, snobs like buy this high-end stuff and they sip on it and all these things. And he goes, and at the end of my father's life, he had to drink it with Diet Coke. And the point here is we just wanted to share the memories together and have the cocktail together. It didn't matter how this person consumed it. What was important was the interaction. And so kind of applying that to life where, we may have some differences, but why do we need to judge people if we can, kind of all get along? I really like that. And the second thing he said, going back to these experiences between people, these interactions that I think maybe in today's modern times we're seemingly forgetting a little bit. But he said, when you buy a bottle of Buffalo Trace, you're spending $60 to a few $100, right? It's not like you're buying a $30 bottle of whatever. He said every time you go to sit down with somebody and share the experience of this whiskey, this type of stuff, you have one or two and you're done. He said, mark on the bottle what the height of it was, and then put the person's name that you consumed the beverage with to basically make a memory, a stratigraphic memory on this bottle, so that every time you take that bottle out once every few months or whatever, you get to remember about these memories you shared, not because of the liquor, but because you were spending time with somebody else. So I thought that was really impactful. Like, I did not expect to go to a GIS conference. I thought we were talking projections and things, and I walked away with like life lessons from a distiller. And it was a really neat story. So you were like, where did that come from?
No, I love that. That is amazing, because when I ask these questions, I think, from my lens, what weird or cool things ever come from that. And so I figured with you are there. You're there for 8 hours a day when, at a conference, then you're going out and meeting people. And I just figured you probably had the coolest story. And I love that story. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to look at Bad Elf because you have sent me one. And we want to connect that with Survey123. I'm going to go grab it off the charger real quick here. All right. So I took this out of the box. And this is what it looks like for everybody who's out there in the world. And it has a cool sticker on it. On the very top, it has a Bad Elf. And if you know anything about Matt's the director of cartoons. And so everything about this is awesome. So we have the unit, we have a card, just so everybody can see. Bad Elf is putting a lot into making you feel comfortable about, using their devices. So I've taken the little sticker off, and now it has a QR code. And so I'm just going to follow these directions, and it tells me that I need to turn it on, and the green light is on. Does that mean that it's on, or does that mean it's powered?
Yeah, great question. So when you turn the device on, when you see a red light, that'll mean that it's on without a GPS lock. If you have the green light on, it's on, but you have a GPS lock, which is pretty fantastic because you're inside. I may not trust the results of it inside, but yeah, that green light means it is receiving signals from space, and you have a position that it can provide, say, to Survey123.
Wonderful. That is amazing. Okay, so the next thing I do is scan my QR code with my phone. So I have my phone. Double click so that I can get that photo.
By the way, while you're doing that and
Yes.
it's going through the QR code, I like the little laminate sticker that came on the Bad Elf Flex Mini. I like to actually take that and put it on my windshield on my car next to my oil sticker.
Yes.
And that really makes you identifiable as a bad elf when you're out in the wilderness and people will see your bad elf sticker.
I love that. And then just for everybody to know, we're going to the App Store and we're going to pull that down. Let's see, it says App Store. Get it from my Google.
Yeah, fun fact. So it's available
Mhm.
both on iOS and Android, so no matter the platform. And we just recently rolled out some new firmware and app versions. So you're going to be getting the latest and greatest, Michelle, as you download it.
Wonderful. That was easy. I'm already here. I'm going to say allow to send me notifications and allow Bad Elf to find and connect to related positions by near devices. That's our other friend over here. And now it's searching. Do I need to do anything over here?
Yeah, so this is a great point. So if you were to look at the phone right now, Michelle, does it look like it's in the Battle Flex app and it's just saying searching for devices? Yep. Okay. So what's happening right now is it is looking for the Bad Elf that's currently not paired to your phone. So think about it like the headphones I have, my AirPods in. What we'll need to do is why don't you go ahead and close the Flex app and let's go into the settings of iOS and go to your Bluetooth settings.
Okay.
And let's go
Bluetooth.
ahead and connect and pair to a new device. And you should see a Bad Elf Flex Mini with a specific serial number. Know that if you're running a fleet of GPS, which I'm sure a lot of your customers and clients are, your students, at the bottom of your Flex Mini, you'll see a unique serial number there. And I like to just sort of know the last 3 digits, like mine is 402. And so if you have several Bluetooth options, just so you don't get confused, remember to kind of look at that serial number. But once you go ahead and pair it, were you able to do that?
Yes. Bluetooth pairing request.
Yep, you'll want to go ahead and accept the pairing request.
Okay.
And if it was successful on an iOS device, if you were to hold your device up, is there a blue light on your device?
Yes, there is a blue light on my device.
Okay, so side tangent here for just a moment. With iOS devices, when you connect your GPS to your phone, it automatically, because we have an MFI Apple certification, will automatically integrate our GPS with any app on the iOS phone. So at this moment, you could go outside and use Google Maps. You could go collect Pokemon, and you would have high accuracy. And the moment that Bluetooth connection is established, you'll see that blue light turn on. Now, in the Android world, that's not necessarily the case. Now, I just mentioned we rolled out some new firmware and firmware and an app where we have built in something called mock locations. In the world of Android, that connection isn't so automatic because it's open source. That there's some extra protocols that have to happen. Now, in the world of Esri, it's easy. You don't have to do anything. We're integrated beneath the hood, so to speak, right? In the engine, we've done all the stuff with Esri's development and mobile team. But if you were to fire up a different app, you would really need to set up something called mock locations. And we could talk about that at a later date, a little more advanced topic, but it's an option now available in the app. And effectively, you're telling the Android operating system to say, hey, use this location. I'm going to mock a new different location with the GPS instead of the integrated one in your phone. So that's all to say that if you're using iOS, just Bluetooth connect the sucker and you're good to go. If you're using Android, you still just Bluetooth connect it. And for Survey123, when you turn on the app and you make that connection, you'll actually see the blue light come on. So I digress, but now that you're connected to the GPS, let's go ahead and fire up your Flex app. So the same app that said it was searching for it, now that you've made that Bluetooth pairing, boom, you should immediately see that connection. The screen is different, and you'll just follow the on-screen prompts. So it'll want you to activate it, and you can literally just follow the on-screen directions.
Okay, so accept my user license, register my Flex, and then my name and my email.
Yep. And if you have an organizational type account, you may think through if you want to have an email associated with all your devices or who's the point of contact within your organization. For you specifically, you may want to set it up for the Survey123 Jedi. But yeah, we the very first time the unit is turned on, there's a mandatory activation to make sure kind of everything matches on the back end.
Looks easy enough. And then it already has some activities set up for me. And my firmware update required. Start downloading. And it's done. And then it says start transfer at the bottom. Do I just hit that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So everything in the Bad Elf world is all based on checklists. Bad Elf developers are pilots by trade. You know, in the drone world, everything is like a checklist to maintain safety and protocols. And so you'll notice in all of our Flex app menu, it'll be kind of checklist. Do this, do this, do this. And if you don't do them in order sequentially, it's a bust. Also, just mentioning it for everybody out there, the Bad Elf Flex app is free on Android and iOS. So it just comes standard as a utility app with the Flex Mini or the Flex Standard. And it's usually used in accordance with or kind of beside Survey123. Once you kind of get up and running, there's a good chance you may never even open the Flex app. But you'll follow those on-screen directions. You'll download the update, and then you'll transfer the update. And then there probably says something on there like, if the unit doesn't restart in 30 seconds or something, restart it. Does it say something like that?
I'm not there yet. We're doing some blinking over here, and I'm about halfway done with the transfer on this side.
Perfect. So yeah, unfortunately, you got to do this thing called patience for just a moment as it downloads everything. Sometimes when the update takes place, you'll have to do a manual reboot. We'll see if the device starts up. It can be a little finicky at times. It's just a Bluetooth thing, but we'll see once the transfer is done.
Activity. Okay, it says it's loading. Now we have a different blinking light, which is great. So now
Okay,
it's doing
blinking
some
lights are good.
magic. Yeah, it just says loading for those of you at home, playing at home. Speaking of Jeopardy. Okay, that's fast. It's telling me the percentage and it's just flipping right through 100 different numbers. Perfect. All right, there we go.
Great.
Have some searching, looking for the GNSS satellite. This
So
is
what
fun.
it's
Thank
done,
you. Mhm.
yeah, no, so you didn't need to do the reboot, so everything should have installed correctly. Now, when it did all of that, what happened is it had to restart the internal GPS board. And so now it's re-looking for satellites. Now, you're sitting inside. The bane of all GPS satellite signals, which is a radio signal, is concrete, wood, metal, trees, everything above your head right now. So there's a really good chance that like it may not actually find a location again. And is the light on it red or green?
It's red today because I'm inside a concrete building.
But if you sat there for
Uh-huh.
long enough, there's a chance, and you can see on the screen right there, it's showing you satellites. And
Mhm.
so there's some metadata availability on the screen. This is sort of a differentiator with Bad Elf. We're one of the only GPSs out there that still has a screen that you can utilize. Now, fun fact, it might not be out because of my little background thing, but mine actually turned green after
Oh,
sitting here long enough. And
okay.
I've got 23 satellites. So sometimes, and I'm inside, sometimes it'll work, but a lot of people, one of their first issues is like it never finds satellites. And the first thing I ask them is, are you sitting at your desk? And if you are, got to go outside. So if it doesn't turn red on its own, we have a way where we can set it up in kind of a mock location. So, for training purposes inside, there's a setting in the app. We only recommend turning that on if you're doing training. You can accidentally leave it on, and then it'll be a fake location in Scottsdale, Arizona, which I don't think you want to be recording. But at this moment, assuming you were outside, you would let the device have about 30 to 45 seconds. Actually, let me back up. The first time you turn this device on after it did everything it just did, and you walk outside, you may need to let it sit out there for like, I've seen up to 15 minutes. Sounds obnoxious, but it's the first time only. So when the device travels a long distance, which it did because it left Arizona and went to where you live in California, the first time it turns on, the GPS downloads data from the satellite, something called the ephemeris and the almanac, fancy terms to kind of like, it's like the data dictionary, kind of where things are. And that first time could take like a minute, but I've also seen it take about 15 minutes. So like, give it its time outside, you know, sit down, read a book or something, flip through YouTube while it's doing this first time. When you first get the unit, make sure you're trying to not go out and do data collection immediately, right? Give it a little bit of time. And then it should turn green. Now, after that, when you turn it on and off, and assuming you're outside, you should see that green light turn on within 30 to 45 seconds of being on, realistically. So within a minute or so, the whole device is on. You've Bluetooth connected it. And if you Bluetooth connected to your phone previously, it will remember those connections. So you don't always have to say pair. Once you're there, you can mess around in the Flex app, or quite frankly, you can minimize the Flex app. And Michelle, you would open up Survey123, and then we just do some settings in there, and we're off to the races, using Esri. Now, I should mention that the GPS version you have, so these are the Bad Elf Flex Minis. There's a standard version and an extreme version. The standard version is going to get you about 1.5 meters consistently, horizontal accuracy, where your phone will get you no better than about 5 meters repeatedly, to put in context. That device, you just get it all connected like we just did. You fire up Survey123 or field maps, and you're basically there with very little interaction. The data coming from the device, so the satellites transmit these signals in WGS84. Technically, it's something called ITR-48, but that's a coordinate system no one's ever heard of, unless you're a geodesist. But WGS84, the World Geodetic System of 1984, is the datum or geographic coordinate system that is utilized by the satellites, and that's the default in Survey123 and in field maps from Esri. Now, I mentioned that this device also comes in extreme mode. You can get this device where you can connect to an RTK network, which is a real-time kinematic network. So in California, you have the CTRN, the California Real-Time Network. You could get a login to that with the different, the upgraded version. And you could get corrections, and you would get accuracy down to about a foot or 10 centimeters. So 1.5 meters, down to 10 centimeters or better. That the only caveat to that is when you connect to these RTK networks, the RTK network actually changes the coordinate systems. And so when that's being broadcast now, when you're connecting to an RTK, it's usually in North America anyways, it's the North American NAT83 2011 GCS. So it's now gotten a projected datum here in North America. There's a lot of Bad Elf videos on YouTube and something more for advanced down the road. But as your students are looking to get higher accuracy as they're outside collecting these data, it's something to take note that when you get to that kind of what they call survey grade, not to be confused with Survey123, but like land surveying, geomatically speaking, or what we call engineering grades. So like if a land surveyor or engineer would stamp the data, just be cognizant that the coordinates change and there's a little bit extra setup needed for that higher accuracy. So that was a very long kind of wind, but this is really important stuff that, like, for the first time GPS user, you may just not know, right? And I just want to make sure that before you fire up Survey123, you kind of understand what's happening with the device.
I appreciate that, because as you're walking through all of this, I'm understanding. So I appreciate this video is going to be there because, somebody else walking through this, now they have a little more explanation down the line. Now, a question from somebody who's new. The Mini Flex and the Extreme, is it the same unit, just a different piece of code gets downloaded?
Yeah, exactly. So same exact hardware. If you were to purchase the Flex Standard Mini Standard, and sometime down the road, next year, next month, next tomorrow, you could always pay the difference and you get the upgrade. And it's just a digital switch. You would connect to the internet. Actually, you literally just do what you did with your phone once that all transaction had happened with Bad Elf, and then behind the scenes, it would just update. So you can always do that update later. And we purposely did that because, these aren't the cheapest things on the market, right? Like, these are professional grade GPS units, and there's some cost behind them. And so a lot of people don't know what they need accuracy wise out of the gate. What they know is they need something better than a phone, because sometimes their phone puts them in the Walmart parking lot across the street, or puts them on the street corner, and it's not reliable enough, right, to really get that higher accuracy. But if 1.5 meters is good because you're walking a trail, or you just need to be kind of close to wherever that utility box is, or whatever. Maybe you just need to be within the parcel. Maybe you're doing a survey 123 and you're actually asking questions of people that live in a house, and you need to go to every residence on a block, right? You could literally walk into the parcel and 1.5 meters will get you in that parcel, no problem. But if you want to find a valve that's only a couple inches in diameter, this is where that higher accuracy would be needed. And I'm not sure the average survey 123 person needs that higher accuracy, but I've seen, for an example, I've used survey 123 pretty extensively for arborist work. So, creating a really extensive kind of pick list and all of that from the desktop side of the world. But because when you get under a tree, the accuracy will go down, right? Because the satellite signals are bouncing off the tree. I mentioned earlier, if you have a higher accuracy, if you're starting from a centimeter and you have a tree, you may go to 10 centimeters. If you start at a meter, you may go to 10 meters, right? So that relationship is consistent.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So do we want to jump into survey 123 and see what we have going on?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead and fire the app up?
Okay.
I'm assuming still a red light.
No, it's green now.
So it's probably got a position, but it's not going to be great, right, inside. But at least for today's video purposes, you'll have everything you need.
Perfect. And I'm getting, it looks like between 15 and 17 satellites.
That's good.
So I'm opening survey 123. There it is.
Keeping in mind that a lot of this is order of operation. Turn phone on, turn Flex Mini on, Bluetooth pair, right? Once your Bluetooth paired, make sure blue light is on, green light's on, then fire up survey 123, right?
Oh, perfect. Yes, thank you. And then we're going into settings.
You will.
Okay, so for me, I'm going into the little icon. Some of you might be having your initials. Okay, and then settings.
There should be something called location or maybe a little satellite.
Yep, right there, the third one down. Okay, integrate provider. Am I adding a location provider?
You are, so let's just pause for 2 seconds. So the default setting says integrated provider. The integrated provider is the GPS in your cell phone or tablet. So you're absolutely correct, Michelle. You'd want to add a new provider, but you need to have that Bluetooth connection established first, or it won't find it, just like the Flex app. So if you hit add, my hope is you see a Bad Elf Flex Mini with a serial number pop up.
Okay, so I'm adding my location. I'm going to Bluetooth because that's how we connected it. I'm allowing you to my computer to go for it, and Bad Elf Mini with my number.
The location sensor is connected.
That was easy.
That sounded good.
That sounded good.
Yeah. All right, mic drop. We're done with it. No. So now that you created what is it saying on your screen now?
Now it says information, alerts, antenna height, and altitude.
Yes. So obviously you could go through each of those settings, but the last two you mentioned, let's specifically take a look there first.
Okay.
I think the first one you said was antenna height. All right. Let's talk about it. If you were to hold your Flex Mini up to this, yep. If you were to hold your Flex Mini up to the screen. So everybody can see it. Okay. So that Flex Mini, the actual antenna on it is towards the top, right where, if you see where it says Bad Elf on the front, think that there's like a few quarters stacked on top of each other, and there's a little patch antenna towards the top of the device. That's actually where you're collecting the X, Y, and Z. So if you've got it on your paddle mount on your phone and you're holding it out in front of you, sort of like below your chin, sort of in front of your chest and your shoulders, where you kind of naturally might hold it, you could take a tape measure, for an example, and go from that area-ish on the GPS and go to the floor. And what would happen then is you're telling survey 123 that the antenna height is an estimated distance from the ground. So what you would be doing there is you're actually collecting a ground feature. Now, hey, Nick, what if I want to put this on a fire hydrant and collect the top of the fire hydrant? Well, you could measure down from the antenna height and go to the bottom. Or if a Z value doesn't really matter to you. You can just leave it at 0, but remember that it's always collecting the position of this piece of the GPS, not where your phone is, right? But that location. Now, this is where a lot of people will put it on a survey pole, right? And so you can put it on a fixed height or some type of telescoping pole that has a specific, height, and maybe it's 2 meters, right? And so you can put it in there, say 2 meters and 6 centimeters or whatever. And at that moment, that's the antenna to the ground. And so just remember, that it's taking that position. Now, if you care more about like the columns of data, or you're like the survey, not necessarily the X, Y, and Z, but more like what am I trying to say here? Like the things you'd be filling out in the form. And that Z value doesn't matter. Don't really worry about it. Now, so that's what antenna height is. And for today, you can just leave it at 0. The other one, I believe, said altitude. So if you click that, what's interesting is this is different than field maps. Altitude is referring to, I believe you're going to get some options like mean sea level. What does your screen say once you click that?
The first, okay, so I have altitude above mean sea level and then height above the ellipsoid. Those are my 2 options.
Stuff's going to get real deep really quickly here. So geomatically speaking, I mentioned earlier that the satellites shoot down a WGS84 datum. That is more so speaking about the horizontal datum. The vertical datum here by default would be an ellipsoidal height. And so one of the ways we define what the Earth is we know it's not a circle, it's ellipsoidal, because around the equator, it's actually wider, and because we spin, there's centrifugal forces that push out. And so we actually don't say it's a sphere, but it's a spheroid, technically an ellipsoid. So by default, you probably just want to leave it at ellipsoid. Now, we start to go down the path of you want to collect high accuracy survey grade Z values or elevational values. That's where you're going to tell it to do an altitude above mean sea level. That is a layperson's way to say an orthometric height, or what we call NAVD 88, or what we call above the mean sea level. So like if you were going to the Colorado Rockies and you went into Aspen and you saw the elevation, that's that number. That number is what an engineer would report. So if you were looking at a planned data sheet that an engineer, civil engineer made, and it's got elevational profiles or topography lines, they won't use an ellipsoid. Now, there's nothing wrong with an ellipsoid. But what they do is they convert it because they apply a gravity model to the ellipsoid. So depending on where you are, gravity changes the sea level, and it basically changes all the dynamics of what we're talking about. This is where the rabbit hole goes deep, and we lose Alice very quickly. I would recommend, if you're looking at doing the higher accuracy, there's probably another video, or there's some YouTube Bad Elf stuff out there. But when you say altitude above mean sea level, be thinking engineering heights. Now, you mentioned earlier drones. Right. So if you're collecting drone data, a lot of times drone data needs to be high accuracy, because the drone data, or the derivative of the drone data, what I mean by that is the drone might be collecting imagery, but then you're converting the imagery into a point cloud, and those point clouds have Z values for every point. And then you're taking those points and you're converting them into contours. And then you want to have somebody go build a bridge on that contour line. That contour line needs to be in the system that the engineers are working in it. And that's usually going to be what we call that orthometric height. It's the ellipsoid plus or minus the gravitational model. And that's what we're talking about there. So that's kind of a much more complicated thing. But I wanted to mention in Survey123, once you've got the profile or the provider connected to Bad Elf, you want to be aware of, where are you putting this unit, and do you want to measure to the ground, or do you want to measure to the bottom of the unit? And then 2, if you're doing higher accuracy data collection, you may consider thinking through NAT 83, RTK corrections, which then would lead you to orthometric height.
Okay. So for all of us, we are thinking we want to do the height above the ellipsoid. Is that correct?
For today's purposes, with a Flex Standard Mini, that's exactly what you're thinking.
Okay. All right, I think we're finished. And then I can just go back. Do we need to do anything else in the settings?
So so I'm not quite as familiar with Survey123 as I am field maps. When
Okay.
you go back into the location piece,
Mm-hmm.
is there a check mark next to Bad Elf?
Yes, there is.
Okay. So it's really silly. In field maps, you create a new provider. You do all the things we just did, and a little bit different, but similar. You do all of that, but it leaves the check mark next to integrated. So everybody sets it up assuming that you'd create a new one and it would select a new one, but it doesn't. So then it just leaves it and it kind of breaks it. But it sounds to me like it automatically, is that check mark is selected, you're ready to fire up your survey of choice and go outside and collect data.
All right. So we will.
Now,
Mhm.
oh, go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to say one thing. I don't remember the line of code specifically in Survey123 Connect, but in Arc Pro, when you create a feature class, you can search the geoprocessing tools for something called add GPS metadata. If you create an ArcGIS Online feature, you'll see a checkbox in the process of creating the feature. I highly recommend doing that. I forget how to add it directly into Survey123, but it absolutely can be done. But what will happen is it will add the metadata being provided from the GPS unit as extra columns of attributable data beyond your form. So you'll have all your yes and no's and conditions and types and things that you're collecting of whatever. And then after that, you'll have like your X, your Y, your Z, your RMS values, your PDUP, all the metadata that like a land surveyor might want to look at to qualify how good the data are.
Okay. And I did that for my thesis 5 years ago. So I will figure that part out and I'll add that to the end of this. I haven't done it in a while, so but it's got to be better.
Yeah, I'm sure. I bet you can find it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It might just be a YouTube search or a form.
Yeah. In the old days, we had to go to GitHub. There was a specific information. You downloaded it, you put it in, and magically all those extra pieces came in. So I'll figure that part out for us and throw it at the end of the video so folks know how to do that too. Okay. It looks like the next
really
thing.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
It looks like the next thing I need to do is have a field trip outside, and I will do that another day. Thank you for liking and subscribing our channel. We drop trainings in here all the time, and I want you to be the first one to be able to see them. At some point during your journey in Survey123, you might need a co-pilot or a room full of co-pilots. We have that for you. We have a coaching call that we do once a week for the price of a few tacos. And we meet up to answer each other's questions. I knew that I didn't have all the answers. Survey123 is a big universe. So what I did is I brought people together, and our community is growing. So whether you're watching this late in 2024 or in 2025, just know that we're growing. And life is better with friends. So get involved with folks who are like-minded, and some of them are going to have more experience than you, and some of them might have less experience. So we help those who need it, and we glean from those who have the knowledge. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you on the other side.